The rain pelted down as Emma Carter, investigative journalist for the Daily Lens, stared at the glow of her laptop screen. Her latest tip had led her into a chilling rabbit hole, a series of unsolved murders scattered across the country. At first glance, they were unconnected, different cities, different demographics, different lifestyles. But one detail made her blood run cold. Every victim had downloaded an app called Happy Habit within weeks of their deaths. The ocean waves crashed rhythmically against the rocky shore, a stark contrast to the quiet tension Emma carried inside. Her new life in the cabin was both isolating and strangely comforting. She'd traded the bustle of her city apartment for the stillness of the woods, and though she missed the hum of civilization, the price of safety made it worthwhile for now. But Emma knew she couldn't stay hidden forever. Her exposé had struck a blow to Althean dynamics, but their reach was vast, and she'd learned firsthand how corporations like them could slither out of even the tightest legal nets. Whistleblowers disappeared, lawsuits dragged on for years, and public outrage inevitably faded. The fight wasn't over, and deep down, Emma knew she wasn't done fighting. One morning, as she sipped her coffee, the burner phone on her table buzzed. She'd given the number to only a handful of trusted contacts. The message was short: new lead. Check your secure drive. Max. Emma's pulse quickened as she grabbed her laptop and logged into the encrypted server Max had set up for her. A single file awaited her, titled Project Umbra. Her stomach sank as she opened it. The document was dense with technical jargon, but the implications were clear. Althean hadn't stopped their experiments. They had simply pivoted. Project Umbra wasn't about predicting behavior, it was about influencing it. Using advanced AI algorithms and the data harvested from apps like Happy Habit, Althean was developing a tool capable of subtle, targeted manipulation. It could plant ideas, nudge decisions, and steer people without them ever realizing it. Advertising, politics, even personal relationships, nothing would be off limits. Emma felt the familiar churn of adrenaline and dread. If Project Umbra went live, it wouldn't just target individuals like Happy Habit had. It would control entire populations. She reached for her phone, her fingers hovering over Thorne's contact. They hadn't spoken in weeks, not since he'd been suspended. Their last conversation had been brief, tinged with mutual frustration. Stay safe, he'd said before hanging up. Now she hesitated. Dragging him back into this could cost him more than his badge. But she needed help. Thorne's voice was gruff when he answered. Carter. Didn't think I'd hear from you again. I didn't think I'd have to call, Emma replied. But there's something new. Bigger than before. There was a pause. Then, tell me where to meet. They rendezvoused at a diner 2 towns over, a quiet place off the main highway. Thorne looked different, leaner, more weathered. The suspension had clearly taken its toll, but his piercing green eyes still held the same fire Emma remembered. She slid her laptop across the table. It's called Project Umbra. Thorne's brow furrowed as he scrolled through the document. Jesus, he muttered. This isn't just surveillance. This is mind control, Emma finished. And if Althean pulls this off, they'll be untouchable. Thorne leaned back, rubbing a hand over his face. You've got proof. Enough to start digging. But if we're going to stop them, we need more. Thorne nodded slowly. I might know someone who can help. An old contact in the FBI? She's off the books, but if we can get her on our side. Good, Emma said. Because we can't do this alone. The next few weeks were a blur of covert meetings, encrypted messages, and late-night strategy sessions. Thorne's FBI contact, Agent Dana Morgan, was skeptical at first, but the evidence Emma presented was undeniable. With Morgan's resources and Max's hacking skills, they began piecing together the scope of Project Umbra. What they uncovered was chilling. Althean had already partnered with social media platforms, search engines, and even online retailers. Their algorithms were being tested on unwitting users, fine-tuning their ability to manipulate choices. A beta version of the tool was set to launch within months under the guise of a new app, Mindspace. As the team closed in on Althean's operations, the pushback intensified. Emma's burner phone was hacked, her cabin broken into while she was away. Thorne reported being tailed by the same black SUVs that had run them off the road months earlier. And Max narrowly escaped an attempted abduction after a late-night coffee run. "We're running out of time," Morgan warned during a tense conference call. "Once Mindspace goes live, pulling it back will be almost impossible." Emma's voice was steady, but her hands trembled. "Then we hit them before they launch." The plan was risky, bordering on reckless. Max would infiltrate Altheon's servers to extract the full Umbra files, while Morgan coordinated with a handful of trusted agents to prepare a warrant. Emma and Thorn would act as decoys, drawing Altheon's attention away from the hack. It all came to a head on a stormy night in San Francisco, where Altheon's headquarters loomed like a fortress. Emma and Thorn parked 2 blocks away, their eyes on the building's main entrance. "You ready for this?" Thorn asked, his voice low. "Not even a little," Emma admitted. "But that's never stopped me before." Thorn smirked. "That's what I like about you, Carter." They exited the car and walked toward the building, Emma clutching a briefcase filled with decoy files. The plan was to pose as whistleblowers threatening to go public, forcing Altheon's security team to focus on them while Max did his work. It was a gamble, but it was all they had. Inside, the air was cold and sterile, the lobby eerily empty. A receptionist greeted them with a practiced smile. "Do you have an appointment?" "We're here to see your CEO," Thorn said, flashing a fake press badge. "Tell him it's about Project Umbra." The receptionist's smile faltered, and within minutes, they were escorted to a conference room by 2 imposing guards. Emma's heart raced as they waited, the silence oppressive. When the door finally opened, a man in a tailored suit entered. His expression was calm, almost amused. "Miss Carter." "Detective Thorn. I've been expecting you." Emma's blood ran cold. This wasn't going to be as simple as they'd hoped. And somewhere across the city, Max's fingers flew across his keyboard, racing against the clock. Happy Habit wasn't a sinister-looking app. Its pastel logo and cheery name promised users a better, happier routine. It was a self-help tool offering daily affirmations, habit trackers, and mental health check-ins. It had surged in popularity over the past 2 years, particularly among young professionals and students. Emma first stumbled upon the connection while investigating the death of Lily Price, a 23-year-old grad student from Denver who had been found strangled in her apartment. Lily's parents had insisted she'd been acting paranoid in the weeks leading up to her death, claiming she'd heard strange noises and thought someone was following her. The police dismissed their concerns, chalking it up to stress-induced delusions. But buried in Lily's phone records was an innocuous email, a welcome message from Happy Habit. Intrigued, Emma began cross-referencing other cases. Jason Liu, a 30-year-old software developer in Seattle, stabbed in an alley. Maria Alvarez, a high school teacher from Austin, found drowned in her bathtub. Andre Bishop, a 41-year-old architect in Chicago, pushed in front of a subway train. Each victim had downloaded the app weeks before their untimely deaths. Emma's heart raced as she pieced together the pattern. But the most disturbing discovery came next. She dug into the app's permissions and privacy policies, finding an alarming level of access. Happy Habit requested location tracking, microphone access, and even the ability to read and write data across other apps. None of this was unusual for modern apps, but something about the breadth of its permissions struck her as excessive for a habit tracker. Her tech-savvy friend, Max, confirmed her fears. "This app's collecting way more data than it needs. It's not just tracking habits, it's monitoring conversations, movements, even patterns of behavior. Someone could easily use this to target people." "Target how?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Max frowned, his fingers flying across his keyboard. "Depends. Predict when someone's alone, figure out routines, exploit vulnerabilities. It's like a digital stalker." Emma's stomach churned. "And you think that's what's happening here?" Max hesitated. The app's backend is tied to a company called Altheon Dynamics. They're not small. Think cutting-edge AI, data mining, government contracts. If someone's misusing this data, it's either them or someone who's breached their system. The name rang a bell. Altheon Dynamics had been in the news for all the wrong reasons: data breaches, lawsuits, whispers of unethical experiments. Emma's editor had once called them the Frankenstein of Silicon Valley. Over the next few days, Emma plunged deeper into Altheon's shadowy world. She discovered the company had quietly acquired Happy Habit 6 months before the murders began. Internal documents obtained from a whistleblower hinted at a secret program called Project Insight, which aimed to use AI to predict human behavior. Publicly, it was touted as a revolutionary tool for mental health and productivity. Privately, it seemed to have far darker applications. Emma's investigation hit a boiling point when she attempted to contact Althien for comment. Within hours, she noticed strange things happening. Her phone glitched, her apartment Wi-Fi slowed to a crawl, and unmarked cars began idling outside her building. She wasn't just digging into a story anymore, she was being watched. One night, as she sifted through files in her dimly lit apartment, a knock on the door made her jump. Peering through the peephole, she saw a man in his late 30s, soaked from the rain. He held up a badge, Detective Sam Thorne. "Miss Carter, I need to speak with you." "It's about your investigation." Emma hesitated before letting him in. Thorne's green eyes scanned the clutter of papers and sticky notes covering her walls. "You've uncovered something dangerous," he said, his voice low. "I've been tracking these murders too, but every time I get close, evidence disappears. Witnesses recant." "You think Althien's involved?" Emma asked. "I'd bet my badge on it. They've got resources most police departments can only dream of. And they're willing to do whatever it takes to protect their secrets." Emma's breath hitched. "So what do we do?" Thorne's jaw tightened. "We find proof they can't bury. And we stay alive long enough to share it." What followed was a harrowing game of cat and mouse. Emma and Thorne unearthed chilling details: a backdoor in the app's code that allowed remote surveillance, payments from Althien to known hackers, and a list of potential targets flagged by the app's algorithms. But as they closed in on the truth, the danger escalated. One night, while driving back from an informant meeting, their car was forced off the road by a black SUV. They barely escaped into the woods, their pursuers' flashlights cutting through the darkness. Emma's heart pounded as she crouched beside Thorne behind a fallen tree. "They're not just trying to scare us," she whispered. "They want us dead." "Then we're closer than we thought," Thorne replied grimly. In the end, it was a whistleblower inside Althien who turned the tide. An anonymous source leaked damning documents to Emma's encrypted email, memos detailing Project Insight's true purpose, internal debates about its ethical implications, and a direct order to neutralize external threats, a euphemism for silencing journalists and investigators. Emma published the exposé with the Daily Lens, sparking public outrage and government inquiries. Althien Dynamics denied everything, but the evidence was overwhelming. Executives were subpoenaed, the app was pulled from stores, and families of the victims finally got answers. But the victory came at a cost. Emma moved to an undisclosed location after a series of break-ins and anonymous threats. Thorne was suspended for bypassing protocol, though he insisted it was worth it. "You can't unring a bell," he told Emma during one of their rare, covert meetings. "They'll recover, rebrand, and try again. But now the world knows what they're capable of." As Emma stared out at the ocean from her secluded cabin, she felt both relief and unease. She had uncovered the truth, but the shadows of Althien's influence still loomed large. Somewhere out there, someone was already writing the next line of code, perfecting the next tool for control. And Emma knew she'd be waiting to expose them. The storm had cleared by morning, leaving the air crisp and the horizon impossibly blue. Emma stood on the cabin's porch, clutching a mug of coffee. The weight of her victory, if it could even be called that, felt heavier now than it had in the days following her exposé. She'd brought down one monster, but the world was full of them, and she knew Althien Dynamics wasn't finished. Her phone buzzed on the table behind her. It was the same burner she'd used to contact Thorne. Hesitant, she picked it up and read the message. "Nice work, Carter. But the game's not over. Check the news." Her heart skipped. She opened her laptop and navigated to a major news site. The headline blazed across the top of the page: "Tech giant's new app promises mental wellness revolution." The app was called MindSphere, and the logo was strikingly similar to Happy Habit's cheerful pastel design. The accompanying article painted it as the future of mental health support, backed by glowing endorsements from prominent figures in tech, medicine, and government. No mention of Althien Dynamics, but Emma didn't need it. She could feel their fingerprints all over it. The game was already starting again. The thought exhausted her, but it also rekindled a fire deep in her chest. She'd uncovered their secrets once, and she could do it again. Her encrypted laptop pinged. It was a new file from Max, a folder simply labeled "Follow the Wires." Before she could open it, her satellite phone rang. Thorn. "I saw the news," he said without preamble. "It's them, isn't it?" "Feels like it," Emma replied, her voice steady despite the knot forming in her stomach. "They're already rebuilding." "Then we're not done," Thorn said. His voice carried a mix of resolve and weariness. "I've still got a few connections willing to fight. If you're in, we can." "I'm in," Emma interrupted. There was no hesitation. She didn't even let him finish. Thorn chuckled softly. "Figured you'd say that. Be careful, though. This time they'll be smarter. And angrier." Emma's eyes drifted to the ocean, its surface calm but deceptively powerful. "Good," she said. "So am I." She hung up and turned back to her laptop. The file Max had sent was full of breadcrumbs, offshore accounts, shell companies, and names tied to Mindsphere's development. It wasn't just a lead, it was a challenge. Altheian thought they could outpace her, outlast her. But they hadn't counted on one thing. Emma Carter didn't quit. Not when lives were at stake. Not when the truth was on the line. She took a deep breath, opened the first file, and began again.